Election night 2022, it is here. And with exit polling data starting to come in right as we are coming on the air right now. In other words, at any point in the next 60 minutes, we could see some actual data coming out on what voters are thinking about today. We're already hearing anecdotally about where their heads are at and how candidates are feeling ahead of the first returns on the East Coast about an hour from now. Our reporters are posted up in a whole bunch of states where races could swing the House and the Senate. We're also going to take the temperature of folks in Washington, like President Biden. Will he be stressed watching tonight's returns, knowing they could reshape what he's going to be able to do for the next couple of years? We'll break down what life could be like for the White House if the GOP takes control of Congress. And we've got our special report from Wisconsin, how a group of disabled voters fought and won to expand ballot access. What that might mean for the future of mail-in voting a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, coming to you from election headquarters here in New York. And at some point in the next 60 minutes, we are going to start to see some early exit polls. Okay, maybe some nuggets on stuff like who's voting today, how old they are, which issues they care about. Our team, as we speak, is analyzing the data. As soon as they have a handle on it, we're going to be bringing it to you here live on the air. So let's set the stage for it. Because what happens tonight sets the stage for how the next 2 years look in Washington and wherever you live. Republicans need just 5 seats in the House and 1 seat in the Senate to take control of both. And we have 5 big questions this hour before we get those first returns coming in. Number one, when are we actually going to see results? Because let me just set a stake in the ground here tonight on election night. There are a whole bunch of close races. Every state's got its own laws. Election day, early in person, mail-in ballots to count, lots to do. Some races are going to end the night too close to call. OK, so very likely, right, there's a big chance we are not going to see a balance of power call in the Senate. Maybe in the House. We don't know, though. Could be weeks before we get the full picture. So brace yourself. Election night, going to be election week, right? Question number 2. How will former President Trump's handpicked candidates do tonight? We know he's got a big announcement a week from now. He told us he did. He's probably going to say he'll run for 2024 in the White House again. So will his picks now deliver the Senate for Republicans or fizzle out in the general? Then there's the question on abortion access. Are Democrats going to turn out in big numbers? Are they energized enough after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade? We've also got some demographic questions, specifically with Latino voters. Are they going to keep up this slow shift toward the Republican Party? We're watching that group specifically in places like Arizona, Florida, Nevada, Texas. And then finally, what is coming next, right? Because there are hundreds of election deniers on the ballot. A lot of them are expected to win. So if they get elected to Congress, or if they get elected to run their states, what does that mean for our democracy, especially headed into 2024? We are going to be live in 5 states to kick off our coverage in the next 60 seconds. We want to capture the mood of voters. We want to see how candidates are feeling right before this whole thing kind of goes nuts when polls close and we dip into special coverage. I want to start right here in New York with our political director, Chuck Todd. Okay, we've talked about what a good night looks like for Democrats and Republicans. Yeah. I know you've been texting a ton of people and talking to a ton of people. What's the read?
Look, I think the read is everybody's trying to figure out 2 things. Is Democratic turnout actually look like what our poll indicated, which is that they caught up?
That's right.
And the second is, what are independents going to do? Okay? Are they going to end up breaking single digits for Republicans or double digits? Because that's the difference between a good night for Republicans and something that looks like a wave. And that's where I think, to me, the unknown factors are.
So one thing that I'm hearing, right, Democrats and Republicans, pessimism from Democrats, optimism from Republicans, right? Feels somewhat warranted based on the poll numbers. Is that going to get borne out, you think?
I think it's possible, but I think it's going to be one of the things that it may be a while before we sort of feel it.
Yeah.
Like, I go back in 2018.
I heard you saying, right? I know.
It took us Thanksgiving week.
Talked about that to Mark Murray.
Yeah.
I was covering the White House at the time, and I was like, oh, wait.
Is this a wave or is this not a wave?
Right.
There's some clip that moves around, James Carville, like 2 hours into the night going, oh, this doesn't look like a good night for Democrats. Well, just wait 2 weeks, you know? And I think that's the question I have is, we don't know what kind of night this could be. There's sort of different versions of waves we could have. We're
going to get the first data here coming in the next couple minutes. Can you be, in the ethos of our show, be transparent with people? Like, this is the first wave.
Okay.
We shouldn't read too much into this. We've got a team analyzing it, right? We'll bring it to you when we get them.
It's a pretty big poll, and we do, look, some of it is in person.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot.
People who have already voted.
That's right. And they literally exit. Yeah. And we've done some of it where we've exit polled people that voted early. And that's an old-fashioned, it could be a phone poll that we've been doing. We've been working on that over the last 4 or 5 days as well. So this will be, it certainly will be a robust first chunk of voters, but you're going to have missing Election Day voters in here, particularly from the Mountain Time Zone and the Pacific Time Zone.
I know you have a show to get ready for, a special coverage. You know who's coming in for us? Ben Camisar, your friend in the political.
We love Ben.
Behind-the-scenes guy, the wizard behind the curtain.
Mr. House guy, Mr. Money. He's been tracking all of this as well.
He's like on the email and the thing, looking at it all. Chuck, it's good to see you. I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you, friend. Let's start tonight out in Georgia, right? So we've talked about what we're going to see with these exit polls. What are we seeing on the ground in these states that are going to matter? Senator Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker, head-to-head in one of the marquee Senate races tonight. And by the way, we've also found out today that the DOJ is monitoring elections in 3 counties in that state to make sure that everywhere they are following voting laws. Ellison Barber is posted up in Atlanta. And Ellison, a big focus is whether or not this race is going through a runoff. You just heard Chuck and I talking about how this is going to be election week, maybe weeks plural. In the state where you are, it could be election month.
Yeah, right. That's the big question tonight. Not necessarily who is going to win, but if we will have a winner by the end of the evening, or if we're going to hear that it's going to go to a runoff and that we won't know until December. Having spoken with campaign sources on both sides are saying right now they feel confident heading into tonight that they think their candidate can come out on top and this can be done and over with tonight. Everybody starts the night out pretty confident. We'll see as we get more counties, as counties come in, particularly those suburban counties, whether or not some of their mood there shifts. But you look at polling averages, right? And these two candidates are still essentially in a dead heat. The latest average from the New York Times of polls has Herschel Walker up on average by about 1 percentage point, but we cannot say it enough. It's not just about winning in this state. In order to win this race on election night, a candidate has to win with a majority of the vote. That means they have to pass the 50% threshold. And if neither candidate does that, then the top 2 candidates head to a runoff come December. Neither campaign, neither candidate wants that to happen. But the polls right now, they are still incredibly close. Hallie?
Quick, Ellison, you have the DOJ monitoring elections in Atlanta and counties nearby to make sure, as we said, these places are following voting laws. What is the update on that? Is that something, we're keeping an eye on here?
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on that. So the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ, they said that they're going to be monitoring, I think it's 64 different jurisdictions in 24 different states to make sure that federal voting rights laws are being complied with and that they are being followed. 3 of those counties here in Georgia so far. We haven't heard any sort of major red flags or concerning moments. There was that incident with Cobb County absentee ballots, about 1,000 of them not being sent to those absentee voters on time. Court has already weighed in on that, giving those voters some relief, saying they can vote in person, or they have kind of the military extension where if their absentee ballot is postmarked by November 8th, they'll accept it up until November 14th. But it's something we'll keep monitoring throughout the night, Hallie.
Ellison Barber, thank you very much. Appreciate it. To Pennsylvania now, and another one of the big questions here. How long until we get a winner in that key Senate race between John Fetterman and Mehmet Oz? Rahema Ellis is joining us now. Rahema, talk to me about what's happening in one of the counties in Pennsylvania where voters were flagging that some voting machines may have run out of printer paper.
Well, they're trying to make certain that they get all of that together so people can cast their ballot tonight. Let me tell you where I am, though, Hallie. I'm at the Museum of the American curtains that are covering the booths. They got 6 booths over here, and it's an appropriate place for us to be, the birthplace of the independence and the American Constitution. How appropriate can that be as people are now casting their ballot? And this is only the 2nd time that people in Pennsylvania have had the opportunity to cast mail-in ballots. And as a consequence, a lot of those ballots are being questioned because they want to make certain that there is no double voting here. So some people think that we will know about the results of this election in a matter of hours, but in perhaps the race for Senate, it might not be hours. We might be looking at days. Hallie?
Rahema Ellis, thank you. Can you tell me, too, Rahema, it's just a mood check, gut check on where voters are, where their heads are at here, with just a couple of hours now until those polls start to close?
Well, we went to some polls and talked to some voters, Hallie, and I want to share some of what they were saying to you about why some people were saying this election is so important, and it was also so important to them that they showed up to make certain that there is no doubt that their vote is going to be counted. Take a listen. Why did you vote in person instead of doing it by mail?
I'm scared. I know a lot of people are making mistakes, like they put in the dates or the address correctly, so no, I want to do it in person.
You want to make certain your vote is counted?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a whole thing for many people because they heard so much discussion about whether things would be valid or invalid. They didn't want to take any chances, Hallie. They showed up in person today.
Rahima Ellis, thank you. To Ohio now, where a record-breaking number of early votes were cast. People got out there early. And, Jesse, we talked about the 5 questions we had at the top of the show. One of them was the Trump factor. You were at a race where this is in play big time. I think that you're at one of the candidates' events, right? Tell us more about the expectation tonight.
For 20 years, he's represented the area.
Yeah, Hallie, former President Donald Trump has loomed large in this race, going back to the primary. J.D. Vance, who was the Republican nominee, was in the middle of the pack, and then he was propelled to the front of the field, a crowded GOP primary field, with help from former President Donald Trump endorsing him. And last night on Election Eve, the former president was back in Ohio, stumping for Vance one more time. He is up against Congressman Tim Ryan, a Democrat who also brags about agreeing with the former president on some issues. And so that is what we've been seeing at play in this race over the last few months. Tim Ryan had momentum over the summer because he was advertising pretty much unchallenged. Then Vance got a huge infusion of cash, tens of millions of dollars, including from a group aligned with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. And that has helped him push back on the narrative that Ryan had been putting out there as someone who is centrist, can work with people across the aisle. Vance says that doesn't line up with his voting record in Congress, Hallie.
Jesse, record-breaking early vote, too.
And that's
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry. I know. Sorry, it's been a crazy day. I just want to add. I know that we've spoken with some voters in Youngstown earlier, which is the congressional district represented by Tim Ryan right now, and we asked them what they made of the former president's appearance with J.D. Vance yesterday. Here's part of what we heard from some voters in Ryan's district earlier.
I think it hurts him more than anything. Well, what else you got to say? It's Trump. He's a wild card. You never know what he's going to do.
I think that can go either way. There's a lot of support for certain people, but I didn't listen.
And you mentioned before the early voting numbers that we're seeing. So I have the stats here, 2022 versus 2018. We were looking at more early in-person votes cast in person, more than 100,000 more. However, absentee ballot requests are down, but the overall total ballots cast as of the end of early voting, according to the Secretary of State's office, was up compared to 2018, the last midterm election, Hallie. So that's what we're looking at here in Ohio right now.
You can always toss a voter sound if you need it, candidate sound, whatever you want. Thank you. So listen, gang, it's here, the first exit polls. We talked about them. We started the show with them, and here we are. A team's been analyzing them. I asked Chuck Todd to come back and be at the table with us here to talk through this. So we are literally getting them off the printer as we speak. First ones that we're going to talk about, the issues that voters care about. Talk us through it.
Well, look, what's interesting is it was a bit more narrow, I think, of a gap between economy and abortion. It was just a 5-point, I believe it was the inflation was sitting, I believe, at 32%. Abortion just 5 points behind at 27. Then you had crime, guns, and immigration. And literally it almost is a ping pong. If you know, look, it's a little early for us to overdo which party splits are on this for now. But you see, there's no doubt, inflation for Republicans, abortion for Democrats. But guns for, what's interesting, the crime issue it breaks for Republicans, but not in the same way inflation does, and the gun issue breaks a bit for the Democrats. So if you just look at it through issues, this looks like it is slight advantage Republicans on the issues, but not as great, perhaps, as some of the other economic numbers.
Can I just explain to people what they're seeing on the bottom of the screen here? So obviously you're seeing me and Chuck talking. You're seeing the banner, which is the news we're talking about. And then under that, right, this is the automated graphic that is pumping out to you some of the exit polls that we are seeing. So you're looking at the ones right now on Arizona voters and how they broke by gender according to our exit polls. Can I tell you, you are seeing this at the same time that we are seeing this, okay?
That is true.
Our systems only work so fast, right? So you want to keep it glued to however you're looking at this, Chuck. So let me just make sure that people are understanding kind of the key points. And again, let's be clear. First wave of exit polls. This doesn't mean this is like totally baked in, but as you said, this is an important data metric in where voters are.
Look, if I had my druthers, nobody would see these exit polls for a week, because the way to get an accurate exit poll is to weight it to actual vote. So I say this because what happens is you will see all the news organizations reweight these exit polls as more data comes in, both the actual surveys of voters and then the actual results themselves, where we have the answer key. I always say, how are people voting? Well, we have the answer key because we'll eventually see how people vote. And when you weight it against the results. So these are, I always say that all of these individual numbers probably have about a margin of error at this time of night of 3 to 5 points. that they could fluctuate. So right now we indicate that inflation is a 5 points greater than abortion. But later tonight, that gap could either close.
Right.
If it ends up Democrats did a little bit better, then it'll get reweighted. So the point being is that this is preliminary data. It's the first hit, which means these are a lot of Election Day voters, and we know that leans Republican, but there are a lot of the early mail voting that was done there. So there is a bit of a margin of error here that I think people have to be aware of.
One of the questions that we've been asking, I think, for weeks here, months, as you well know, is how much are these midterms going to be a referendum on President Biden? We know that they will be in part, and we are now seeing some numbers here with more voters, according to our exit polls, saying that President Biden's policies are hurting the country versus helping the country. 36% say helping compared to 46% who say the president's policies are hurting the country. 16% say they're not making a difference. And as our exit polling data team points out, even some of the president's core constituencies are not convinced that his policies are working. No. Only about a third of Latinos, a third of voters under the age of 30, young voters and independents, say his policies are mostly helping.
I have to tell you, not to brag about our own pollsters, but this national exit poll looks like our final NBC News poll.
That's
I mean, right on the nose when it comes to Biden's job rating, Biden's job rating, the issue in the economy, the idea that people are more disappointed than less. So, look, it certainly gives, it's a confidence builder in our own survey work. I'm not surprised that our national poll is pretty accurate. But this looks like that poll. And, you know, again, partisans look pretty even. It's going to be this independent vote, right? Is it? And boy, in our
So what
polling,
does it say to you that 35% of independents say, only 35% say that they think the president's policies are helping?
Well, the only good news is that that's a bit higher than what his independent number was in our poll and job approval, but those are not good numbers. And this is why, you know, in my various scenarios, you know, in 2006, you had both parties were sort of even, but Democrats won independents by a lot. And it allowed them to win every close race. Perhaps that's what we're this exit poll, that could be what we're seeing tonight, where it could be very close, but these independent voters may be the tipping point group.
There's one more exit poll I want to talk about. You tell me when you need to go, because I know that you have some things you need to be doing. Ben Camisar, our wizard behind the curtain, is standing by, and I know he's going to jump on set in a second when you have to go. One of the big things we talked about when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade in the beginning of the summer was how energizing this could be for Democrats. You remember this, I know, because I heard it from Republicans who were angsty, right, over how this was going to affect their chances, and could this end up giving Dems enough enthusiasm that it could create problems for Republicans who wanted to take the House. We are seeing some numbers here that about 27% of voters say abortion was the most important issue. Midterm voters generally feel negatively about the Dobbs decision. That's the decision that overturned Roe. And it continues to be an issue of relative strength for the Democratic Party. This feels like an affirmation of what we had seen in our numbers, what we had seen when we were talking to voters and thinking about the issues.
Look, and the thing I'm going to keep looking for tonight is I do think abortion depends on the state you live and the intensity of the issue.
Michigan versus somewhere else.
Versus New York State.
Right. Yep.
You know, for instance, in these House races that are suddenly very vulnerable in New York State, Democrats tried the abortion issue. A lot of swing voters are like, abortion's never going to be illegal in New York. And it's like, they may be concerned. My favorite anecdote, you know, you have a voter that sticks in your head.
Yeah, tell me. I got one.
This independent voter in Georgia, and I'm doing this voter panel, and I said, none of you brought up abortion. And he said, well, if they pass a federal ban, I'm going to become a single-issue voter. The point is, the one thing I think Democrats are going to be reminded of tonight, perhaps, is that voters are reactive. They're not proactive. You know, look, we all wish in life we were all more proactive, but normally we all live our lives reactively. And the point is that voter is, you know, I think these voters care about abortion rights and they care about the democracy, but in their mind, it's not a crisis yet. You know, the base of the Democratic Party may think it's a crisis right now. I think what we're learning tonight is voters are concerned. They don't view it as a crisis yet. You know what's a crisis?
Not getting gas in the car.
Correct. There's your crisis. And by the way, one of the lessons that Democrats ought to have, if you care about the democracy, focus on the economy.
Chuck, Todd, thank you. Go do what you need to do. I appreciate you. We're going to talk more.
We'll be on 9 all
6 p.m. I know. I'll see you in about 45 minutes. We want to get you back into the field, right? Because that is where, listen, that's where this exit poll data is coming from, right? People who live out in the world, not love our election headquarters, but they're not polling us here, right? So I want to take you to Nevada, because what we're seeing from some of these exit polls are some interesting numbers as it relates to a constituency that's going to be incredibly important when it comes to one of, if not the most vulnerable incumbent Democratic senator in the country, and that is Catherine Cortez Masto, right, up against Adam Laxalt in a really critical race in Nevada. Let me bring in, I think we have Guad Venegas, who is with us here. And Guad, I wonder, you know, two things for you here. You have been doing so much reporting on the Latino vote, which we need to say, not a monolith, right? This is not, it's not a block vote. It is an important constituency, especially for Democrats. There's been more and more concern on the part of Democrats that perhaps the Latino voting demographic is shifting more red, right? Especially in states like where you are, in Florida and Arizona. And what we're seeing in some of these numbers from these exit polls are that, you know, President Biden is seeing perhaps not as strong of support for his policies from this voting group as he might like to see.
Hallie, that is in fact what we've seen from the polling. We've heard that Latinos are leaving the Democratic Party and they're planning on voting Republican. Yet when I asked Catherine Cortez Masto, the first Latina senator to be elected to the U.S. Senate for the state of Nevada, she believes she will have the Latino vote here in Nevada. Now, when you look at the way you can reach out to this group of voters, which, by the way, as you mentioned, is very diverse. Latino voters are diverse when you look at the voters on the West Coast, the East Coast, Texas. But here in Nevada, no one can reach the Latino voters the way the Culinary Union can. The union has a lot of power. You're talking 60,000 members. They're there to support the Democrats. They're projecting to reach 100 different households, a million. They're projected to knock on 1 million different houses for this election and talk to the voters. The majority of the union members are Latinos as well. So that is the best weapon that the Democrats have to reach out to these Latinos. Now, here's the thing. In a place like Nevada, things are so close that the Republicans only need a chunk of that Latino vote to tip the scales their way. And we have to keep mentioning the nonpartisans in Nevada, which also include some Latinos. That could change everything. We're seeing the numbers now coming into Election Day. 1/5 of the voters that casted their ballots in early voting and in the mail, those were all nonpartisans, Hallie.
I have to ask you, Guad, because, you know, we cover turnout here. It's a political cliche, and I'll have to turn to my correspondent card to say it, that, you know, it all comes down to turnout, but it does. And where you are in some key places, it's raining, it's snowing, right? The storm started blowing through overnight. Any sense of how that has affected turnout, people coming out to the polls? Have you heard from anybody who's like, meh, I'd rather not go outside today?
Well, Hallie, I brought this jacket just in case I needed it. I had to put it on. It is raining here in Las Vegas, all of Clark County, but it is snowing in Washoe. These are the two counties with the most voters. So, yes, there's a storm, and that could affect someone who's deciding to come out and get in line. Now, earlier, we went to a large voting location that was using a mall to have people line up inside of the mall. Normally, they line up outside. So they made a change. But you've got locations all across the county here with the rain that you can see behind me and the snow in Reno. When you look at the images, it is a winter storm. So we'll have to see how the weather will affect that turnout. And, of course, the largest group of voters that were going to be coming out today, and what we've seen already, is Republicans. So how many Republicans will stay home because of the weather? We don't know. What we do know right now, both in Clark and Washoe, the voters that are showing up, it is majority Republican, Hallie.
Guad Venegas, thank you for bringing us that reporting on the ground. We'll be talking to you again in our election night special in just a little bit. Let me bring in Carrie Sanders, who is live for us in Florida. And Carrie, you know, I'm struck by some of the exit polling we're seeing coming out of the state where you are. If folks are looking, and again, as a reminder, if you're just tuning in, you are looking live at the exit polling that just started coming in like literally 12 minutes ago at the very bottom of your screen, however you're watching, TV, phone, you know, tablet, whatever. And Carrie, one of the things we saw, 91% of Florida voters had decided before last week who they were going to cast a ballot for, right? This was fairly baked in people's decision making. I wonder if that tracks with what you've heard from voters on the ground, and tell me where you are and what you expect tonight.
Well, very much. Hallie, I am in Orlando. This is where Democrat Val Demings, who is trying to unseat Republican Marco Rubio in the Senate seat here. She has very much an uphill battle. Part of the challenge for Val Demings and really for Democrats in Florida is to take a look really what's happening in Miami-Dade County, which is the largest electorate in the state of Florida. It's a 59% Hispanic community. It typically is blue. Hillary Clinton took it by 29 points over Trump. I mean, it was been solidly a place that the Democrats could rely on. But indications are that the Republicans have done a very good job of working their way in beyond the Cuban-American vote that almost always goes to the Republicans. But as you just pointed out with Guad, this is not a monolithic community, and anybody who speaks to Hispanics as a monolithic community does so at their own at
the disservice of the voters, too,
and so,
right?
Of course. And so Val Demings really having to try to rely on statewide, 18% of the Hispanic vote here in Central Florida. That tends to be more Democratic because that 18% portion in this area is mostly Puerto Rican. But nonetheless, it's likely that we're going to potentially see some inroads into that vote by the Republicans. And then Val Demings, who was the first, or who is a former black police chief here in Orlando, has good name recognition in this area, but in the South has found it a little bit hard to get some traction. She will rely on the black vote to also support her, and we're talking about 13%. But the question will be what the turnout was, and so there's a lot of questions about, you know, whether people felt, you know, excited enough to get involved and actually go out today and cast their votes.
Carrie
Hallie?
Sanders. Stay there, Carrie. Literally don't move. Okay, we're coming back to you in just a little bit. Thank you. None of you move either, right? Because look, we're getting it. It's happened. We're in it, gang. We have exit polls on election night. It is 5:27 Eastern time. We are 90 minutes away from some of the key polls starting to close. It's all happening, and it's all happening right here on NBC News Now. We're going to be talking a lot more on all of these developments in just the last couple of minutes. We're going to take you back live out to the field. We're going to tell you what will happen if, in fact, Republicans take the House. We got it all. Stay with us. We are back, and we have new exit poll data that for the first time on this election day really gives us a glimpse, gives us actual data on who's voting. What do they care about? Why did they go out and cast a ballot today? I want to bring in our deputy political editor here at NBC News to talk to us about this. Ben Camisar, just so people know, you are like behind the scenes usually.
Usually, no,
we have yanked you out. We have begged you to come on and sit with us because I know you can.
Corner that you know.
Well, here's the thing: you're super smart, and I want people to hear from you. First new exit poll that's coming in, and I want to just let people know again. We are seeing this live like you are. We're going to try to get these graphics up on the monitors and on the screens. We're going to do it as fast as we can. But we want to get to the information quickly because this new exit poll out says that Americans think that democracy is under threat, but they disagree on why that actually is, right? So 70% of voters across the country say that the U.S. today is threatened. 27% say it's secure. But then if you look at the party breakdown, they are divided. They are divided. Walk us through this.
Well, that's the thing. So, you know, we see this pop in our polling a lot, right? So you ask people the broad question, are you concerned about threats to democracy? Everyone says, of course I am. Then you ask them why, right?
Then you ask them why.
And it's the same issue. Democrats say, I'm concerned because you look at the number of Republicans who denied the 2020 election, and they're saying that's a threat to democracy. Republicans say, you look at how Joe Biden was elected illegitimately, and that's a threat to democracy. Obviously, that's not true.
Right.
But you've been hearing this echo chamber for so long on the Republican side, and it's very clear that they have conditioned their voters into believing that the elections, free and fair elections of 2020 represents a threat to democracy.
Only 30% of Republicans who went out and cast a ballot in this cycle, only 29% think that Joe Biden was legitimately elected president of the United States. He was. But this is relevant for what we're going to see when the results come in tonight and what we're going to talk about in a second when we get to some of these governor's races around the country as it relates to the number of election deniers and election skeptics who are on the ballot. More than a dozen governors, about 10 secretaries of state are considered election deniers or skeptics on the Republican side who are potentially going to be taking over the mechanisms, right, by which people vote in the next election, too.
Yeah, and there's gradations of this, right? So you have, your Carrie Lakes who say, she's running for governor in Arizona. She says, decertify the election of 2020. And we've got sort of on one spectrum. And it kind of goes down in gradations. You have people questioning the legitimacy. And then you have really most folks in that sort of mushy middle who will dodge the question. It's fascinating through our work how we've noticed how so few of these Republicans on the ballot currently are willing to say Joe Biden was fairly elected and the election was legitimate. And I think that's the kind of cloud that casts over a lot of the things moving forward.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm asking our stage manager to give me my my like Bible binder because I wanted it for reference and I thought we had it on set. This is kind of the thing we're looking at tonight. I wanted to flip because we are, we've captured a lot of data as it relates to this. What is interesting here, Ben, threats to democracy polled is really important in our NBC News polling. But the two issues that we thought were going to be the two big issues, according to our exit polls, are inflation and access to abortion.
Yeah, and that's not surprising, I think, because you see it kind of embodies. I'm flipping my page here, too, because we're all doing this live. It embodies sort of the messaging, right? The Republican message has said, look, a lot of what you hear from a lot of them was, go fill your gas tank today and then vote. A reminder of the economic conditions here. I think that, it's important to note that these are the two issues. But when you look at independence, right? Independence, it's a 15-point edge on inflation as the leading issue. So, if this is going to be a sort of a new world of elections where the bases are all polarized and fired up, it's going to be those voters in the middle that are going to decide.
I'm going to ask you to sit tight for 1 second. Do you have anywhere to be?
No, I'm here.
Okay, good. Ben Cameron is going to hang out. I want to bring in a couple of people who know this really well, people who cover two really important beats where this is all going to matter in about maybe a day, a week, a month from now when we know all of the results. That's our senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake, our White House correspondent Monica Alba. Garrett, let me start with you because you are where the potential future House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, if Republicans take the House, will be tonight. I know, and Mon, you know this, and Garrett, you know this. Like, is your phone blowing up from sources who want to know what's up with the exit polls, right? Who want to see what things are going? Like, tell me, what are you hearing based on some of the numbers that we are seeing? Garrett, I'll start with you.
Well, we're in the early freak-out part of the night, Hallie, which I feel like is an election tradition here. Sure. As the polls get ready to close, everybody starts to worry about their district and their state. There's questions about turnout. There's questions about what we're hearing from our sources and from the other campaigns. That is always true, but it seems especially true on the Democratic side tonight. I'm hearing kind of piecemeal reports here and there, concerns about turnout, concerns about, things like even weather in some of the key states being a factor.
Well, I would guess Nevada,
Nevada is the case.
Yeah.
California, that's the case. I mean, look, there are more, potentially tight battleground House races in California than we do typically see, in part because of redistricting. And California, which takes forever to count their votes, could be the state that keeps us doing this for election week and maybe the rest of election month. And so I'm hearing a lot of those things anecdotally. But if you talk about the kind of body posturing election feel and what the vibe is, I mean, look, there's only one party in Washington, D.C. tonight on the question of control, and it's the House Republicans, right? House Republicans have put this event together tonight. They expect to win. We are not expected to hear from the Speaker of the House tonight. We are not expected to hear from leading national Democrats here in D.C. tonight. And as you kind of like everybody battens down the hatches, starts scrambling for the data, those are the kind of things that tell you what the parties think is going to happen as we get ready for the voters to tell us what actually is going to happen.
Garrett, can you stand by for a second? Mon, I want to go to you because there's a new exit poll that we're just getting in on how voters feel about their family finances, right? We know that this is something that people care about. We know the president and the White House care about it because the fact that inflation is so high has been a drag on the approval numbers for President Biden. According to what our exit polls are showing, 46% of voters say their family's financial situation is worse than it was 2 years ago. Not the number that I think the White House might want to see on that front. Also, not necessarily a huge surprise.
The other word there that's in that new exit poll, Hallie, is gloomy, right? This gloomy picture of the nation's finances, essentially, and the economic outlook. That's something that this White House is keenly aware of and bracing for when we look at the results tonight. They do know that the economy is a top concern for so many Americans. That's what's driving high inflation and jobs, a lot of these ballot box decisions. So absolutely, we're talking about what sources are asking, who's looking at this information. I can tell you that the President of the United States behind me tonight is expected to be watching these returns, just like a lot of Americans, on his couch in the White House residence, surrounded by loved ones, watching what the nation wants to essentially say about what the state of our politics and government is right now. And the economy certainly is at the top of that list. I think the White House knows, as one Biden advisor told me earlier today, no amount of messaging can make inflation disappear, but they certainly tried to, they say, keep things competitive for Democrats by pointing out what President Biden was able to accomplish from a legislative legislative perspective that could bring some cost downs for American families. So when we're talking about things like health care, for instance, but again, no spin on legislative victories is going to actually help people who feel that pain, not just at the pump, but in the grocery store. So that's something the White House is very much cognizant of. They know that that's going to be a big part of the messaging afterwards. But something else you were just talking about, this threat to democracy, that is something President Biden has talked about repeatedly.
Part of his closing argument,
these absolutely, Hallie. That big speech last week here in Washington at Union Station, that was all about that. So I think you can expect them to also say, hey, this is why we're worried about it, and we continue to be even more worried about it, depending on how some candidates react to the results in the coming days.
You know, I was talking with just kind of doing a vibe check, right, over the last 18 hours or so. And one of the things I heard from a number of Democrats, Garrett, was this issue. They were looking at it in some key states of crime, feeling like they have really been on defense there. Republicans have made that a real issue in some of these races. I'm thinking about places like Wisconsin, for example, or Pennsylvania, as had come up in some conversations that I have with sources. In our exit polling on the issues, we know it's inflation and abortion, number one and number two, 32%, 27% that people say are the most important issues to them. And then there's crime at 12%, along with gun policy at 12%.
Yeah. Crime came on late as an issue that could be decisive in this election cycle, right? It was not something we were talking about 3 months ago or 4 months ago. Republicans weren't really putting money behind it in their ads until a month or so ago. Clearly, they were seeing something in their polling that this was something that voters wanted to hear, and they tried to respond to it. The reality in federal elections, your member of Congress or your senator is not going to do much of anything to deal with crime on your block or in your city. But in governor's races and in mayoral races, that's typically more of an issue. But you see it get nationalized here. When you talk to Democrats, they feel like in many cases their incumbents were able to sort of inoculate themselves against this. They were able to get out early and talk about money they spent to shore up police departments, you know, their local police departments in their local communities. You know, sending out money, bringing money home is one of the few ways that this can be addressed. But with so many open seats to defend, it's harder for Democrats who maybe don't have that kind of track record to get on the air early, to inoculate themselves and to say, I did X, Y, and Z to protect you from crime. And in a race that could be this close, particularly for control of the House, there are enough open seats in play here. The Republicans could pick up the majority on that alone. So a potent issue, you know, kind of, even if it's a narrow one, could be very effective for Republicans.
Garrett Haake live for us in Washington, where we expect to see House Speaker McCarthy, Monica Alba, in that familiar spot on the North Lawn. I'll be seeing all of you in, I think, 20 minutes or so when we pick up our special election night coverage right after this show. We still have this show to talk about, so let me bring in Blaine Alexander, who is in Atlanta, Georgia for us. I think Atlanta. Blaine, did you move locations? I just want to check.
We're right here in Atlanta. You're right, Hallie.
Just wanted to check. A critical state. We know, right? Senator Raphael Warnock, former football star Herschel Walker in this very, very close race. You know, I talked to a voter in Georgia who is a guy who works in real estate, cares very deeply about the sort of economic climate here, really a reflection of somebody who we are seeing in these exit polls here. He's looking at, like, mortgage rates, right? He's looking at how the housing market's going. He's looking at cost of living for people, because that's the stuff that affects his bottom line and that affects his business. We are seeing that when people are saying, again, that they don't have faith, right? In large part, only 36% of people said they have faith that President Biden's policies are actually helping this country.
You know what I think is fascinating? You talked about those exit polls, economy, abortion, crime, and gun rights. That is almost a direct reflection of what I hear when I talk to voters, including voters that I've spoken with today. You know, I think that it's a toss-up between what issue is 1, 2, or 3. But I definitely think that those are the same 3 things that I've heard, not just when I've talked to people here in Atlanta, but when I've gone out to some of the rural parts of the state, when I've gone to Kemp events and Abrams events. Those are the main issues. It's just that they have differing opinions on who they think is going to do a better job solving it. And so I think we have some sound I want to play from you, a voter I spoke to. Her name is Kat. She actually just moved here from Washington, D.C. She said, when I first asked her, economy is the top of the list for her. But listen to how she said that there can be, at times, some conflicting interests when it comes to the things that she thinks about when she's voting. Here's a little bit of what she told me.
So, you know, sometimes they contradict each other depending on the candidate that you speak of. But I would say that I did economy, crime and safety issues, and then the abortion issue.
In that order?
Yes.
Got it. You know what I think is interesting also, Hallie, is that's what we've heard from the candidates on the campaign trail when it comes to Stacey Abrams, Governor Brian Kemp. Economy really has been at the top. But from Stacey Abrams, she's repeatedly tried to bring in abortion as an issue. She's brought in the gun law here in Georgia. But she's always pivoted in large ways back to making it an economic issue, essentially saying that, listen, if companies don't like Georgia's abortion law, if companies don't like the gun laws here, they're going to pull out. That's going to be a financial burden for people in Georgia. So she's wrapped all of those together and taken it straight back to the economy. I do think that something that we've heard also from voters, though, is Governor Kemp's decision to make Georgia the first state to reopen. That's something else that voters have told me. Either they love that decision, it was good for their business, it was good for their bottom line, and they praise him for that, or others who say it was premature, it was dangerous. They say that it was just a money-driven decision and something that put the lives and the health of Georgians at risk. So that's another major issue that we're hearing. Also traces back to the economy, Hallie.
Blaine Alexander, thank you, Blaine. That is super smart. I'm glad you're there on the ground, as always, to bring us what voters are thinking, what you see as the sort of reported analysis and breakdown there. For more of that, let me go out to Arizona, because this is another important state. Hallie Rafa is there, I think, and she's going to be coming to us here live to talk through what she is seeing on the ground. And we've been talking about these exit polls, Hallie. We're going to talk more about that with Ben Camisar in just a second here. But you know, the idea of election denialism is a big one here, the idea of threats to democracy. And we have seen here that is perhaps less of a motivating issue for voters generally based on some of these exit polls. All three candidates for statewide office in Arizona, for governor, for secretary of state, for attorney general in Arizona on the Republican side, are all election deniers or skeptics. One of only 3 states in the country where that's the case. The other key one is Michigan. Big implications in both of those states for 2024.
Huge implications, and that's something that we have been monitoring for weeks now, really, how this race is mirroring so many other races across the country. That's really testing the candidacies of these election deniers running for office. I can tell you from being on the ground here talking to voters, people who say they're registered Democrats, registered independents, when I ask them what issues are most important to them, really what we heard was what we've been hearing for weeks now, that the economy, inflation, are top of mind for people here in Arizona, as we've seen with people all across the country. And I spoke with Democrats and independents who also said that because of these top issues, they decided to split their vote. They actually voted for Republican Carrie Lake, who, as you mentioned, has been denying the results of the 2020 election, hasn't really committed to accepting the results of this election if she loses. And they said that they split their vote, voting for Republicans at the top of the ticket, voting for Democrats lower down on the ballot in local elections and in propositions. But that is something that we're seeing a trend in, that the economy, inflation, top of mind, not just for people here in Arizona, but for people all over the country, Hallie.
Hallie Rafa live for us in Mesa, Arizona. Hallie, thank you. Ben, let me ask you this. Ben Camisar, who's still with us here on set from election headquarters. What are you seeing, if anything, that from your expert perspective here is surprising you in these exit polls so far?
Yeah, so one of the the big question, right? Economics versus abortion, right? We look at these numbers. On one side, obviously, that's been the Republican messaging on economics. You've got 46% of people say their family finances are worse. You've got inflation as the top issue. And then you've got more voters saying Biden policies hurting them versus helping them. So on the flip side, you have abortion, right? These exit polls show that the majority of people are either angry or dissatisfied with the decision on Roe v. Wade. But when you look at the party breakdown on what party do you trust more to handle abortion, Democrats are winning that by 10 points. So for a lot of voters, they may be dissatisfied with Roe, but they're still sticking with they think the Republicans could handle that issue better. Our last NBC poll that asked this question in September had Democrats up 22 points. So if that number doesn't get better, then it's not going to be a breakaway blowout issue for Democrats.
And I think the point that you're also been making is that Democrats need it to be a breakout issue if they have a hope of kind of holding on to some of these closer seats, you think?
They were hoping that that was the kind of the message that would bring undecideds, that would bring folks that were kind of
independents.
Those independents, yeah. And you're seeing if you're just, the party's just up 10 points on that question, it begs, you know, the Democrats are going to want to see that number go up as more exit poll data comes in.
We know that the issue of abortion access has been front and center in the state of Michigan, where Prop 3 is on the ballot. It is literally, right, on the ballot, a measure that would basically scrap this 1930s era law in Michigan that restricted abortion access. Yamiche Alcindor is there. And Yamiche, this has been, I think, the motivating issue, the motivating factor in the Michigan race. I'm going to throw an exit poll number at you because we saw it scroll across the bottom of our screen on the issue of not abortion, but who do you trust to run elections? 47% of voters in our exit polls said only Gretchen Whitmer, the Democratic candidate. 40% said only Tudor Dixon, the Republican candidate. There is a lot at stake everywhere, and that is no less true in the state that you are posted up in.
Certainly, and those exit polls are really interesting because it shows that this is a contentious race, and it also shows you that top of mind are really candidates in Gretchen Whitmer and Tudor Dixon. So, of course, abortion is quite literally on the ballot in 5 states, including, if we put it up for people, there's Michigan, there's California, there's Vermont, Kentucky, and Montana. In California, Vermont, and Michigan here, what you're seeing is referendums that are asking voters whether or not they want to enshrine abortion rights into the state constitution. And the Democratic governor who's running for re-election, Gretchen Whitmer, she's made abortion a central part of her closing message, saying women's rights have to be protected in this state. You're also seeing the exact opposite argument on the Republican side, with Tudor Dixon saying that there should not be access to abortion, including in cases of rape and incest. She's also been making the case that the economy is the top issue on people's minds and that people should also be thinking about education and parents' rights. I want to show you just a little bit of where I am. I'm in Grosse Pointe, which is a politically diverse and racially diverse part of the state. People here are voting are filling out their voter information cards. Then I want to take you on a little bit of walk because it's democracy in action today. We're walking here to where people are actually casting their ballots. There's a line here where people are in this room. They're securely walking in there. Everything seems to be going smoothly. And some of the things that you hear, it really underscores that Michigan state officials say that this could be the highest turnout in Michigan history for a midterm election. So that tells you there's a lot of passion on the ground.
Yamiche Alcindor live for us. In action, just like democracy there in Michigan. Yamiche, thank you. Ben, quick final thoughts to you as we have this another exit poll here before I know you need to go, that most voters have a pessimistic national outlook. The majority of voters, most of them, are not satisfied or even angry about the way that things are going in this country.
Yeah, the vibes aren't good for voters heading into this midterm.
You said it, friend. That's what the exit polls seem to show.
And the thing is, not to toot again, but Chuck was saying at the top there, not to toot our own NBC poll, but this is what we've seen across the year. We've asked this question every single time, and we've had, except for one track, and it was like 68%, at least 70% of people have said they think America's on the wrong track. You're seeing that tonight when you're talking about these polls that are just coming in about negative feelings about the country. And also, again, I keep going back to these independent voters, right? The question, so 94% of Republicans are feeling that the negative feelings about the country. Not super surprising. Democrats are in control.
Not surprising, yeah.
Democrats, 49%. You know, probably for a slew of reasons, some of them may actually bring them to the polls, issues like abortion. But again, that independent number, 78% of independents. That's a lot.
Ben Camisar, it's so awesome to see you emerging from behind the political unit curtain. So thank you so much. You're brilliant. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you. We have a lot more to get to. We're going to try to sneak in a really quick break. It's been 15 minutes, and we haven't taken one yet. We thought this would be a good time. The human face of this election is coming up. Pandemic-related election laws changing how people voted in a lot of states last cycle. Since then, some places have rolled back those rules. How new laws might affect voters with disabilities and the races themselves, that's coming up in our original tonight. Next. Okay, so let's take you over to Wisconsin now, where polls close at 9 o'clock Eastern time. That's just a few hours away, not too long from now. The Senate race there, you know, is very close. You've got the Democratic candidate and Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes running against incumbent Republican Senator Ron Johnson. The polling averages so far here have shown Johnson with a little bit of a lead over Barnes. And it's important to remember that since the 2020 election, the way that people actually cast their ballots is changing. In the 2020 general election, about 65 million people voted by mail. To put that in perspective, in the 2016 general, 33.5 million submitted mail-in ballots. This is according to Pew. So that nearly doubled, right? The number practically doubled between 2016 and 2020. You know, the pandemic was a huge part of that. But even with this big jump in people taking advantage of mail-in ballots, the mail-in ballot option has been under attack. That's according to a group of disabled voters in Wisconsin who have sued the state, for limiting their mail-in voter access. Here's NBC's Shaq Brewster with more.
62-year-old Wisconsin resident Scott Luber has muscular dystrophy. Unable to move, he depends on a ventilator to breathe. He needs physical assistance with nearly everything, including voting.
How do you physically plan on voting?
I will utilize one of my nurses to help me fill out my absentee ballot, and then my assistant will take me into the city hall.
Back in July, a Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling eliminated ballot drop boxes across the state. The court writing, quote, "A voter must personally mail or deliver in person the voter's absentee ballot to the municipal clerk, not to an inanimate object."
I don't want to break the law.
The ruling prevented Scott and other disabled voters like him from confidently casting an absentee ballot in local elections, fearing the use of the assistance they require would be illegal.
How did that make you feel?
Discriminated against, that I was unable to do my American right to vote in a free election.
So Scott and 3 other disabled Americans went to court. The case, Carey v. Weck, the group arguing Wisconsin law didn't allow disabled voters to receive third-party assistance in returning properly marked absentee ballots, infringing on their right to vote. They won that case, the judge ruling, quote, "If defendants cannot or will not give plaintiffs assurances that their right to vote will be protected, this court must do so."
You helped change the election laws here in Wisconsin. How do you feel now that you can participate?
I feel like any other Wisconsin citizen that wishes to vote and will participate in the November election.
It's a battle that's played out across the country. In 2020, pandemic-driven election changes like expanded vote by mail and drive-through voting led to increased access for disabled Americans.
Disabled Americans, as well as all Americans, need as many options to cast their ballot as possible, and all of those options need to be accessible.
States like California and Maryland made the changes permanent, while at least 19 others like Texas and Georgia passed laws rolling them back. Experts say making voting harder for disabled voters than it was before.
In 2022, we are still having to assert that disabled people are, in fact, people who deserve dignity and respect. So I'm not at all surprised that we have to continue to fight for our place in civic life.
Scott hopes his lawsuit is a model for other states, but also a warning against new restrictions proposed in his own.
It would be a shame if those kinds of laws are passed, and if they are, I will definitely, if asked, be part of any lawsuit to overturn some of the restrictive laws.
You're ready to keep up the fight.
I am.
And advocates for disability rights point out that although we saw a huge increase in disabled voters in 2020, they still participated at a lower rate than non-disabled Americans. So when you hear about that sense of fight, it's not just about preventing new restrictions from going into place, but it's also about expanding access and addressing the more systemic issues that still persist. Hallie?
Our thanks to Shaq Brewster for that reporting. And listen, if you are watching this, okay, polls are going to be closing now in just about an hour in some places in this country. We have teams covering all of this out across the country. And in just about 2 minutes and probably 15 seconds from now, you're going to watch it all live. However you're watching now, however you're streaming or watching this, when we pick up our special coverage, Tom Yamas, myself, our incredible team of reporters in the field, Chuck Todd, a cast of thousands, okay? Stay with us. We got a whole lot more. Countdown starts right now. See you in a second.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.